Hello again everyone and welcome back to Skyblock News. I'm your host Derailious and today we're going to be going over a few more changes on the Hypixel Alpha server, as well as a weapon that seems to be getting weaker over time. Before we begin, I just want to say please make sure to like and subscribe down below as we're approaching 80k. Join the Discord down below, discord.gg/Derailious to keep up to date with Skyblock News, and use my code CODERAIL on the Hypixel store for 5% off your order. It is the best way to support the channel. Thank you so much. Without any further ado though, let's get started here. So to start off here, there are a few changes to enchants that I want to go over. Arcane, currently on main, which allows you to deal more damage to Galatea mobs, is now Wood Splitter, which allows you to deal more damage to woodland mobs. This goes into the mob type system, which for those who didn't watch the other videos, mob types are basically a system in which every single mob is labeled and certain types of mobs exist, and you deal more damage to those mobs based on the types of enchants that you have. This is also something that you can get a tier 6 version of. I believe it's from Chill Shots at a 0.1% drop, so it's relatively rare, but not the craziest thing in the world, and that'll get you the tier 6 version, which is nice to see. Also, if I head over to the Hex, for example, and I put an item inside, and I want to go to Impaling, now there's up to 5 tiers of Impaling, as you can see here, so that's notable. It'll be higher than 3, allows you to deal more damage to aquatic mobs. Very interesting. There are a couple other things I want to go over here though. A lot of complaints have been levied at changing a lot of things like the Derailious blade, for example, from an axe into a sword. And now that they have this mob type system, it doesn't really feel like they need to keep these items as swords anymore. They can bring them back to be axes. All you need to do is give stuff like the Figstone Splitter, or whatever you want to deal damage to mobs on Galatea, a woodland tag, so that you know, hey, this weapon is usable on woodland mobs. That way it'll be very clear, very distinct, and it will make a lot more sense, and you're also able to make weapons look like axes, which was a very interesting part of the game. It was cool to have like a Derailious axe, for example, or any other number of axes in the game. The names were just better before. I think this is an easy solution, just something that makes a lot of sense and isn't really too hard to implement. Hopefully they end up doing that, but I wouldn't hold my breath. Another thing I wanted to talk about here is related in twofold to dungeons, but also to how mob types work. First of all, they need to make it so you can see every single type of mob in the game in the mob types menu, not just like a baseline of what each mob is, because you can't see literally every mob in the bestiary, for example. Like if I go into the Catacombs bestiary, I can't see, for example, I don't know, the Wither King, or for example Necron, or for example any other number of enemies that you're able to theoretically fight. I feel like it would be important to know all of the types there. And this is also relevant because now the M7 dragons are considered both undead and withered, which is good for the Hyperion and also good for the Halberd of the Shredded, but not very good for the Dark Claymore, as you can see, which has kind of fallen behind its similar compatriots, at least in M7. Now, I don't mind the fact, well, I kind of do mind the fact that currently, like, Terminator and Mosquito Bow are, like, the only thing really used. Whatever, I think you should theoretically be able to burst it up if you want to, but it's just crazy the amount of slander the Dark Claymore has been getting recently, and for good reason, right? Because this weapon has fallen behind in pretty much every single aspect. In a lot of cases, you're going to be better off with a maxed out Midas. I don't even think the two should be remotely close. And now, in dungeons, it's being outstatted and outdamaged by a Halberd of the Shredded in some situations with Chimera 5, or something like a Valk, which is just crazy to see because of that Wither buff. We really need something to improve Claymore overall. It's just a little bit nuts how it's getting outstatted by these other weapons, which shouldn't even be in the same dimension as this item that drops from the hardest floor in dungeons, just period. I really hope they end up doing something with this. Give it a buff that allows it to deal more damage to the bosses or mini-bosses, or maybe let us know when we're going to get that full combat rework that they're hopefully planning. Just do something, man, because this weapon is just a big hunk of stone. Another thing I do want to note here is, despite my brief complaining, I do actually think this update is ridiculously good. It's going to be very nice for new players to be able to see all the different mob types in the game and understand what types of enemies they're fighting. There are a few things I question, like, for example, going back to the M7 dragons, why are they just undead and withered? Why aren't they also, for example, I don't know, airborne because they're flying, or ender because they're dragons? I kind of understand the under one. Maybe they're a different type of dragon, but they should be airborne at the very least. I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Hopefully we can hear some more thoughts about this. I do think the update is in a very solid state, though, overall. Aside from my minor complaints about the Dark Claymore, things are great. I'm very excited to see this release, and once again, would love to hear what you guys think. At the end of the day, though, my name's Derailious. Thank you so much for watching this video till the end, and look to the future, fellas. I'll see you then.